Block 1. I never meant to fall asleep on him. That's what I keep telling myself as I stare at the ceiling of this luxurious penthouse that feels more like a gilded cage than a sanctuary. But perhaps I should start from the beginning. The day everything in my life changed with a simple mistake. The day I accidentally slept on Matteo Ricci's shoulder. Exhaustion had settled deep into my bones that day. 3 connecting flights, a missed connection in Frankfurt, and a last-minute rebooking on a red-eye to Milan had left me barely functional. As a junior translator for a small publishing house, I wasn't accustomed to international travel. But when our senior translator broke her ankle 2 days before a major book fair, I was the only one with enough Italian proficiency to take her place. Just network, collect some contacts, and don't embarrass us, my boss had said, handing me a stack of business cards and a tight budget that had me booking the cheapest flights possible. The first-class upgrade had been a miracle. A gate agent taking pity on my obvious exhaustion and the empty seat available. I remember mumbling a thank you as I clutched my new boarding pass, too tired to fully appreciate my luck. The luxury of first class was wasted on me as I stumbled down the jet bridge, my shoulder bag feeling heavier with each step. The cabin smelled of leather, expensive cologne, and the champagne being offered to passengers already seated. I felt painfully out of place in my wrinkled blouse and sensible travel pants as I searched for my seat number. When I found it, I paused, noticing my seatmate for the first time. He occupied his space with an authority that seemed to extend beyond the confines of his seat. Dark hair, meticulously styled despite the late hour, a jawline that could cut glass, shadowed with perfectly maintained stubble. His suit, charcoal gray and obviously tailored, probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. He didn't look up as I approached, too focused on whatever he was reading on his phone. "Excuse me," I murmured, gesturing to the window seat that would be mine for the next 8 hours. When he finally glanced up, I felt it like a physical force. Dark eyes assessing me in one swift, dismissive sweep. He stood without a word, his movements fluid and controlled as he stepped into the aisle to let me pass. I caught the scent of his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. As I squeezed past him, careful not to make contact. "Thank you," I whispered, though I'm not sure he heard me over the ambient noise of the cabin. I settled into my seat, arranging my small bag beneath the seat in front of me and pulling out my worn paperback, a thriller I'd been too busy to finish for weeks. The man beside me returned to his seat with graceful efficiency, immediately creating an invisible boundary between us as he returned to his phone. The flight attendant approached, offering champagne. I declined, requesting water instead. My seatmate ordered whiskey, neat, his voice a low, accented rumble that somehow commanded attention without volume. "First time in first class?" he asked suddenly, catching me off guard as I fumbled with my seatbelt. "That obvious?" I managed a tired smile. "You look like you think someone will remove you at any moment." A statement, not a question, delivered without looking away from his phone. "Last-minute upgrade," I explained, though he hadn't asked. "Lucky break after a very unlucky day." He made a non-committal sound that somehow conveyed both acknowledgement and disinterest. I took the hint and opened my book, determined to use the flight to catch up on reading and then sleep. The publisher would expect me fresh and alert upon arrival in Milan, regardless of my travel ordeal. The plane took off smoothly, climbing through cloud cover into the darkness above. I tried to focus on my book, but the words swam before my tired eyes. The whiskey arrived for my seatmate, and I noticed the flight attendant's body language, the slight lean toward him, the lingering smile, the attentive service that seemed more personal than professional. He accepted the drink with barely a glance, dismissing her with a subtle nod. I must have dozed off somewhere over the Atlantic. The gentle turbulence, the drone of engines, and the warm cabin created a lullaby I couldn't resist. I remember my book slipping from my fingers, my head feeling heavier with each passing second. What I don't remember is leaning toward him. I don't remember resting my head against the firm surface of his shoulder, or sighing contentedly as I settled into deeper sleep. I woke to stillness. The kind of unnatural stillness that immediately signals something is wrong. The cabin was quiet, the lights dimmed for the overnight crossing. My eyes fluttered open to unfamiliar darkness, and as consciousness returned, horror dawned with it. My cheek rested against expensive fabric that rose and fell with someone else's breathing. My body had betrayed me while I slept. gravitating toward the stranger beside me like a moth to flame. I froze, mortification washing over me in a cold wave. How long had I been sleeping on this stranger's shoulder? Why hadn't he pushed me away? I slowly, carefully tried to straighten, hoping I could pretend this had never happened. Stay. The word was soft, but unmistakably a command, not a request. His hand, warm and unexpectedly gentle, came to rest on mine, keeping me in place. Confusion paralyzed me. I remained still, my cheek still pressed against his shoulder, my heart suddenly hammering in my chest. "You need the rest," he added, his voice low enough that only I could hear it, "and I don't mind." "I'm so sorry," I whispered, my voice scratchy from sleep. "This is so embarrassing." "Is it?" I could hear the faint amusement in his tone. "I've had worse seatmates. I should have insisted on sitting up. I should have reclaimed my personal space and maintained the boundaries expected between strangers. But exhaustion still clouded my judgment, and the solid warmth of his shoulder offered comfort I desperately needed. "Thank you," I mumbled, already drifting back toward sleep. Just a few more minutes. The last thing I remember before surrendering to exhaustion again was his subtle adjustment, angling his body slightly to make me more comfortable. It was an intimacy I would never have allowed myself while fully awake. I awoke again as breakfast service began, the cabin lights gradually brightening to simulate dawn. This time, I jerked upright immediately, horrified to discover I'd slept against him for hours, not minutes. A small wet spot darkened the shoulder of his expensive suit. I had drooled on a complete stranger. Not just any stranger, but possibly the most intimidating man I'd ever encountered. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I blurted, frantically searching my bag for tissues. "Your suit. I'll pay for the cleaning, of course." He glanced at his shoulder with detached interest. "It's just water. But it's fine." His tone made it clear the subject was closed. He studied me with those dark eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "You sleep deeply. Most people wake at the slightest turbulence." I felt heat crawl up my neck. I was exhausted. 3 flights back to back and a missed connection. "Milan your final destination?" he asked, accepting a coffee from the flight attendant without acknowledging her existence. "Yes, I'm there for the International Book Fair. I'm a translator." I accepted my own coffee with a grateful smile to the attendant, who barely spared me a glance, her attention fixed on my seatmate. "Business or pleasure?" I added reflexively, immediately regretting the cliché question. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Always both." The breakfast arrived. Some kind of gourmet egg dish for him. Fruit and yogurt for me. I ate mechanically, aware of his occasional glances. The silence between us had shifted from the polite disinterest of strangers to something charged with an awareness I couldn't quite name. As the flight began its descent into Milan, he finally spoke again. "First time in Milan?" "Yes," I admitted. "I'm supposed to attend meetings for my publisher, but I have no idea how to navigate the city." He considered me for a moment, then reached into his jacket. He produced a business card, thick, cream-colored stock with minimal text, and handed it to me. "My driver will take you to your hotel." I stared at the card. It simply read, Matteo Ricci, with a phone number beneath. No company, no title. "Oh, I couldn't possibly—" "It wasn't a suggestion," he interrupted smoothly. "Consider it payment for the use of your pillow services." There was something in his eyes, a flash of humor perhaps, that made me accept the card despite my reservations. "Thank you, but really, I've already imposed enough." "What hotel?" he asked, ignoring my protest. "The Stella Marina," I said, then quickly added, "It's not far from the fairgrounds." Something flickered across his face. Disapproval, perhaps. "Budget accommodations." I bristled slightly. "It's what my company arranged. Give me your phone." Again, not a request. Against my better judgment, I unlocked my phone and handed it to him. His fingers moved swiftly across the screen before he returned it to me. "My number," he explained. "The driver will meet you at the baggage claim. Black Mercedes, Vittorio. He'll have a sign with your name." "You don't even know my name," I pointed out. "Elena Taylor," he replied smoothly. "Translator for Pinnacle Publishing. 27 years old. First international business trip." I stared at him, alarm bells ringing faintly in the back of my mind. How did you— Your boarding pass was visible when you took out your book, and you talk in your sleep. His lips curved into that not-quite smile again. The plane touched down with a gentle bump, taxiing toward the terminal. As other passengers began gathering their belongings, Matteo remained perfectly still, watching me with those penetrating eyes. "Why are you doing this?" I finally asked. "Offering your driver, I mean. Perhaps I feel responsible for you now." His answer was delivered with such casual authority that I almost didn't question it. "Because I fell asleep on you?" I shook my head. "That hardly makes me your responsibility." "And yet," he said, rising as the seatbelt sign switched off, "here we are." He stood in the aisle, effortlessly retrieving a sleek leather briefcase from the overhead compartment. Without asking, he reached for my bag as well, holding it out to me with an expectant look. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Ricci, but I'll manage on my own." I summoned my most professional tone, determined to regain some dignity after my embarrassing sleeping arrangement. "Matteo," he corrected, "and Vittorio will still be waiting. Your choice if you use his services or not." With that, he moved toward the exit, other passengers instinctively stepping aside to let him pass. I watched him go, a mixture of relief and something like disappointment settling in my chest. I didn't intend to take him up on his offer. I really didn't. But when I emerged from customs into the arrivals area of Malpensa Airport, disoriented and struggling with my luggage, I spotted a stern-faced man in a black suit holding a sign with Elena Taylor, printed in clean block letters. Our eyes met, and he gave a curt nod of recognition. I hesitated, common sense warring with exhaustion and the temptation of convenience. "Miss Taylor," he said as I approached, his English heavily accented. "Mr. Ricci asked me to ensure your safe arrival at your hotel." "That's very kind, but unnecessary," I began. Mr. Ricci's instructions were clear. He cut me off politely but firmly. "Please, allow me to take your bag." As he reached for my suitcase, his jacket shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold, the unmistakable outline of a holstered gun beneath his suit jacket. Who exactly had I spent the night sleeping against? The sleek black Mercedes glided through Milan's morning traffic with practiced ease. I sat rigidly in the back seat, my mind racing faster than the car itself. The driver, Vittorio, hadn't spoken since opening the door for me. His eyes fixed on the road ahead. The partition between us remained closed, isolating me in leather-scented luxury that felt both comforting and threatening. I clutched my phone, tempted to Google Matteo Ricci, but something stopped me. Perhaps it was fear of what I might find. Perhaps it was the nagging suspicion that a man who traveled with armed drivers wasn't someone whose name I should be searching while in his employees' care. The city passed by in a blur of ancient architecture and modern storefronts. Under different circumstances, I would have pressed my face to the window like an excited child, soaking in my first glimpse of Milan. Instead, I kept stealing glances at the back of Vittorio's head, my stomach nodding with each silent minute that passed. "Excuse me," I finally ventured, pressing the intercom button. "This isn't the direction to Hotel Stella Marina." Vittorio's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "Mr. Ricci has arranged alternative accommodations for you, Miss Taylor." My pulse quickened. "I have a reservation at the Stella Marina. My company is expecting me there." Mr. Ricci felt the Stella Marina was inadequate. He has secured a suite at the Grand Milano for you instead. Your original reservation has been cancelled with full reimbursement to your employer. He had no right to do that, I protested, my voice rising slightly. "I need to be taken to my original hotel immediately." Vittorio remained impassive. "I follow Mr. Ricci's orders, Miss Taylor. He was quite insistent about your safety and comfort." "Stop the car," I demanded, reaching for the door handle only to find it locked. "This is kidnapping." "It is a courtesy," Vittorio corrected calmly. "The door locks are a safety feature. We will arrive at the Grand Milano in approximately 7 minutes. You may call your employer from there to update them on your new location." I sat back, my heart hammering against my ribs. Who was this man who could cancel hotel reservations and redirect drivers with such casual authority? What had I gotten myself into by accepting this ride? The Grand Milano Hotel appeared around a corner, its grand facade speaking of old-world opulence and 5-star service. Vittorio pulled smoothly into the private entrance, where a doorman immediately approached. "Welcome to the Grand Milano, Miss Taylor." The doorman greeted me by name before I'd even stepped from the car. "We're honored to have you staying with us." I emerged from the car on unsteady legs, blinking in the morning sunlight. "There's been a mistake," I began, but Vittorio was already handing my luggage to a waiting bellhop. "Mr. Ricci has taken care of everything," Vittorio informed me, handing me a small envelope. "Your room key, the presidential suite. Mr. Ricci will call on you this evening. Please ensure you're available." "I have meetings all day at the book fair," I said, clutching the envelope like it might bite me. "I won't be available for social calls." Something like amusement flickered in Vittorio's usually stoic expression. "Mr. Ricci is aware of your schedule. He will see you at 8. Formal attire is recommended." Before I could protest further, he slipped back into the driver's seat and pulled away, leaving me standing beneath the hotel's elegant portico, with my mouth half open in indignation. "This way, Miss Taylor," the bellhop prompted gently. "I'll escort you to your suite." The lobby was a marvel of marble and crystal, the kind of luxury I'd only seen in movies. Staff members nodded respectfully as I passed, as though I belonged there. The elevator required a key card to access the top floor, and as we ascended, I tried to gather my scattered thoughts. "There's been a misunderstanding," I told the bellhop. "I'm supposed to be at the Stella Marina. I can't afford this place." "All expenses have been covered, Miss Taylor," he assured me with practiced diplomacy. "Mr. Ricci is a valued patron of our establishment." The presidential suite was larger than my entire apartment back home. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Milan's skyline, the morning sun glinting off distant cathedrals and spires. A welcome basket sat on the dining table. Fresh fruit, imported chocolates, and a bottle of champagne nestled in ice. "Your luggage will be unpacked for you," the bellhop informed me. "The spa has been reserved for your use at 11, should you wish to refresh before your meetings. A car will be waiting to take you to the book fair at 1. "Who exactly is Matteo Ricci?" I blurted out as he turned to leave. The bellhop paused, his professional smile faltering slightly. "Mr. Ricci is a businessman with varied interests throughout Italy. If you need anything during your stay, please don't hesitate to call the concierge. We're at your service day and night." Alone in the expansive suite, I sank onto a sofa that probably cost more than my car. My phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. "The Grand Milano will better suit your needs. Your meetings have been rescheduled for the afternoon to allow you time to rest. A suitable wardrobe has been arranged for your convenience. Enjoy Milan, Elena." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, torn between outrage and a strange, fluttering excitement I didn't want to acknowledge. Before I could respond, another message appeared. "I don't make offers twice. Accept what's given and make the most of your time here." I tossed the phone aside, unsure if I was more disturbed by his presumption or by my own reluctance to reject his interference. I should have been furious. This stranger had hijacked my trip, rearranged my schedule, and apparently decided I needed a new wardrobe. Instead, I found myself walking to the enormous closet, curious despite myself. The closet doors slid open to reveal a selection of clothing that made me gasp audibly. Designer labels I could never afford hung in a color-coordinated row. Business attire in subtle, expensive fabrics, cocktail dresses for evenings, even casual wear that somehow looked both comfortable and elegant. Everything appeared to be exactly my size. A separate wardrobe contained shoes, heels, flats, boots, all arranged with meticulous care. On the dressing table lay a velvet box containing a simple but exquisite diamond pendant on a white gold chain, alongside a handwritten note. "For tonight. M." I snapped the box shut, suddenly aware of how deep I was getting into something I didn't understand. This wasn't normal behavior, even from the wealthiest of businessmen. No one spent this kind of money on a stranger they'd met on a plane, regardless of whether she'd drooled on their shoulder. I needed information. Grabbing my laptop, I settled at the desk overlooking the city and typed "Matteo Ricci Milan businessman" into the search bar. The results were sparse but revealing. Matteo appeared in a few society photos, charity galas, exclusive club openings, always in the background rather than featured. Business registries listed him as the owner of several high-end restaurants and nightclubs throughout Italy, as well as real estate holdings in Milan, Rome, and Sicily. No personal information, no social media presence. It was as if he existed only in glimpses and shadows. One photo caught my attention, Matteo shaking hands with a man identified in the caption as Giovanni Belmonte, a name I vaguely recognized from news stories about organized crime investigations. The article mentioned alleged connections to the Calabrian syndicate, but offered no substantive details. My stomach tightened. I closed the laptop and moved to the window, staring out at Milan without really seeing it. The signs were all there: the armed driver, the excessive wealth, the way hotel staff and flight attendants responded to him with that particular mix of deference and fear. Matteo Ricci was connected to the mafia, and for some unfathomable reason, he had decided to take an interest in me. I should leave, change hotels, call my boss, possibly even change my flight home. But as I contemplated these options, I realized how difficult they would be to execute. My company had already been reimbursed for the original hotel. They would never approve the expense of this 5-star accommodation if I stayed on my own dime. Changing flights would cost a fortune I didn't have. And somewhere beneath my apprehension lurked a dangerous curiosity. Why me? What had prompted this level of interest and investment from a man who clearly had the world at his fingertips? The shower in the marble bathroom was a revelation. Multiple jets, perfect pressure, and products that smelled like heaven. I stood under the hot water until my skin flushed pink, trying to wash away my confusion along with the travel grime. Wrapped in a plush robe, I emerged to find a young woman waiting in the living area of the suite. I startled, clutching the robe tighter. "Miss Taylor," she greeted me with a professional smile. "I'm Sophia from the hotel spa. Mr. Ricci arranged for in-room services for you this morning. Massage, facial, manicure, and hairstyling before your meetings." "I didn't agree to any of this," I said, though my aching muscles practically begged me to accept the offered massage. Sophia's smile didn't waver. "It's already been paid for, Miss Taylor. Shall we begin with the massage? You seem quite tense." An hour later, I lay on a portable massage table, feeling like my bones had melted. Sophia's expert hands had worked out knots I didn't even know I had. The facial that followed left my skin glowing, and the manicure transformed my travel-worn nails into glossy perfection. "Mr. Ricci suggested a simple blowout for your hair," Sophia remarked, as she began working with a round brush. "Natural but polished. Does Mr. Ricci always dictate women's hairstyles?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Sophia's hands paused briefly. "Mr. Ricci is particular about details. He appreciates quality and ensures those in his circle reflect the same standards." "I'm not in his circle," I pointed out. "I'm a stranger who happened to fall asleep on him during a flight." Sophia met my eyes in the mirror, something like warning in her gaze. "No one is a stranger to Mr. Ricci. If he's taken an interest in you, there's a reason." "What kind of reason?" I pressed, but Sophia had already retreated behind her professional demeanor. "You have beautiful hair," she commented, changing the subject. "This color is natural?" By the time Sophia left, I looked like a polished, well-rested version of myself, still recognizably me, but enhanced in subtle, expensive ways. I selected a tailored navy dress from the provided wardrobe, paired with comfortable but elegant heels, and tried to focus on the day ahead. Whatever Matteo Ricci's game was, I still had a job to do. The book fair was a whirlwind of meetings, translations, and negotiations. Despite my concerns, the rescheduled appointments went smoothly. Publishers and agents seemed unusually eager to work with Pinnacle, offering better terms than my boss had anticipated. I took careful notes, distributed business cards, and tried to ignore the nagging awareness that something wasn't quite right. It wasn't until my final meeting that I understood. I was speaking with an Italian publisher about translation rights for their best-selling thriller when he mentioned, almost casually, "Any friend of Matteo Ricci is a friend of ours, of course. We're delighted to offer Pinnacle the exclusive English rights." I froze mid-handshake. "I'm sorry. What does Mr. Ricci have to do with this?" The publisher looked confused. "He called personally to recommend your publishing house. Said you were expanding into the Italian market and should be given every consideration." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "When Matteo Ricci makes a recommendation, Smart people listen. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement, yes? I completed the meeting on autopilot, my mind reeling. Matteo had been interfering not just with my accommodations, but with my work as well. The implications were staggering and terrifying. What would my boss say if she knew I'd apparently leveraged a connection to the Italian mafia for better publishing deals? As the fair closed for the day, I checked my phone to find another text from the unknown number. Car waiting outside. Dinner reservations at 8. The dress is hanging in the bathroom. Sure enough, when I returned to the hotel suite, a garment bag hung from the bathroom door. Inside was a dress that took my breath away. Black silk that would fall just above my knees, with a neckline that suggested rather than revealed. Elegant, expensive, and exactly my style, if I'd had the budget for such things. I stood staring at it, the diamond pendant from earlier still in its box on the counter. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings about powerful men with dangerous connections, about debts that couldn't be repaid, about stepping into a world I didn't understand. But another part of me, a part I barely recognized, wondered what would happen if I said yes, just for tonight, just to understand what Matteo Ricci wanted from me. The clock showed 7:30. I had 30 minutes to decide whether to meet the mafia boss whose shoulder I'd accidentally drooled on. 30 minutes to choose between prudence and curiosity, between the life I knew and a door to something I couldn't even imagine. I reached for the dress, my fingers trembling slightly as they traced the luxurious fabric. One dinner. One conversation to ask him directly what he wanted from me. Then I would walk away and pretend this strange interlude had never happened. The woman who stared back from the mirror as I fastened the diamond pendant around my neck was both familiar and foreign. Still me, but transformed by luxury and circumstances into someone I didn't fully recognize. At precisely 8 o'clock, I stepped into the elevator, my heart thundering against my ribs with each floor we descended. The hotel lobby gleamed with polished marble and crystal chandeliers as I stepped out of the elevator. I spotted him immediately. Matteo Ricci stood near the entrance, his back to me, hands clasped behind him in a stance that radiated controlled power. Even from behind, he commanded attention, his bespoke suit accentuating broad shoulders that tapered to a narrow waist. As if sensing my presence, he turned slowly. His dark eyes found mine across the lobby, and for a moment, I forgot to breathe. Recognition flickered in his gaze, followed by something more complex. Appreciation mingled with a possessive satisfaction that sent a shiver down my spine. "Elena," he said simply as I approached, my heels clicking against the marble floor. He didn't smile, but his eyes warmed slightly. "You look beautiful." "Thank you for the dress," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "And the hotel suite, and the spa treatments, and apparently for securing exclusive publishing rights for my company." If he detected the edge in my tone, he chose to ignore it. "You're welcome. Shall we?" He offered his arm, an old-world gesture that seemed perfectly natural coming from him. I hesitated before placing my hand on his forearm, feeling the expensive fabric of his suit and the solid muscle beneath. Outside, the same black Mercedes waited, Vittorio standing at attention beside the open door. "Where are we going?" I asked as Matteo guided me into the back seat. "Somewhere private," he replied, sliding in beside me. "We have matters to discuss." The car pulled away from the curb, merging smoothly into Milan's evening traffic. I sat rigidly beside Matteo, acutely aware of his proximity and the subtle scent of his cologne. "You have questions," he stated, rather than asked, his gaze focused on the city passing outside the window. "Several," I confirmed. "Starting with why you're doing all this for a complete stranger." He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "Are we strangers, Elena? You slept in my arms for 6 hours. You trusted me completely, without reservation." "I was unconscious," I pointed out. "Hardly a conscious decision to trust you." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "And yet here you are, dressed in a gown I selected, wearing jewelry I provided, about to dine with me despite your concerns about who I might be." I swallowed hard. "And who are you, exactly?" "A businessman with diverse interests," he replied smoothly. "Import, export, entertainment, real estate." "And these diverse interests require you to have armed drivers?" A flicker of amusement crossed his features. Milan can be dangerous for successful men. Precautions are necessary. The car turned into a private driveway, winding upward through manicured gardens. A villa appeared ahead, its facade illuminated against the darkening sky. No sign indicated a restaurant. This was clearly a private residence. "This isn't a restaurant," I said, alarm rising in my chest. "I never said it was," Matteo replied calmly. "I have a chef who prepares excellent meals, more private than a public restaurant." The car stopped at the entrance, where another suited man opened the door. Like Vittorio, he carried himself with the alertness of security personnel, rather than domestic staff. "Mr. Ricci." He nodded respectfully. "Miss Taylor. Welcome." The interior of the villa was a study in restrained luxury, art I recognized as museum-worthy adorned walls of warm Venetian plaster. Crystal and gold gleamed in the soft lighting, while ancient wooden beams crossed soaring ceilings. Matteo led me through the main hall to a terrace overlooking the city lights of Milan spread below us like scattered jewels. A table had been set for two, white linen and silver catching the glow of candles. "Your city estate or just one of many properties?" I asked, trying to mask my awe with sarcasm. "One of several in Milan," he replied, pulling out my chair. "Wine?" I nodded, watching as he poured ruby liquid into crystal glasses. His movements were precise, controlled, a man accustomed to perfection in all things. "Why am I here, Matteo?" I asked directly as he seated himself across from me. "What do you want from me?" He regarded me over the rim of his wineglass. "Direct. I appreciate that quality. You didn't answer my question. You intrigue me," he said after a moment. "Your vulnerability contrasted with a certain stubborn independence. It's an unusual combination. That hardly explains all this." I gestured around us. "The hotel suite? The clothes? Interfering with my business meetings?" "I take care of what's mine," he stated simply. The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm not yours. We met yesterday." His dark eyes held mine, unwavering. "And yet, here you are." A server appeared with our first course, momentarily saving me from having to respond. The food was exquisite, delicate flavors that spoke of a chef trained in the highest culinary arts. Under different circumstances, I would have been entranced by the meal. Instead, I found myself studying the man across from me, trying to understand what was happening. "You have connections with the Calabrian mafia," I said finally, deciding directness was my only option. "I saw photos of you with Giovanni Belmonte." Matteo's expression didn't change. "You've been researching me. Good. I would be disappointed if you hadn't. Is it true?" "I have connections throughout Italy," he replied carefully. "Business requires relationships across many sectors." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you need right now." His tone remained gentle but carried a finality that warned against pushing further. The main course arrived, perfectly cooked veal with seasonal vegetables. We ate in silence for several minutes, the city lights twinkling below us. "I should tell you," he said eventually, "that your room at the Stella Marina would have been broken into tonight, your laptop stolen. Possibly worse had you been present." I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "What? How could you possibly know that?" "I know many things," he replied, "including which hotels in Milan are targeted by certain gangs of thieves. The Stella Marina is known for its poor security and foreign business guests. Did you arrange this theft to justify moving me?" The question sounded paranoid even to my own ears. Matteo actually smiled then, a genuine expression that transformed his severe features. "I don't need to create dangers to protect you from Elena. The world contains quite enough without my intervention." "So you moved me to the Gran Milano out of concern for my safety?" I asked skeptically. "And my own pleasure," he admitted. "I enjoy seeing you in surroundings that suit your beauty." Heat crept up my neck at his directness. "I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon. My work here is finished." Something hardened in his expression. "Your return flight has been changed. You'll be staying through the weekend." The wine turned sour in my mouth. "You changed my flight without asking me?" "I extended your opportunity to experience Milan properly," he corrected. "Your employer has approved the extension, with the understanding that you'll be meeting additional contacts beneficial to their business." "This is insane," I whispered, setting down my fork. You can't just rearrange my life on a whim." "Not a whim," he countered. "A decision. There's a difference. And what about what I want? Does that factor into your decisions at all?" Matteo studied me thoughtfully. "What do you want, Elena? To return to your tiny apartment, your underpaid position translating other people's words? To continue living a life constrained by circumstance rather than choice?" His assessment of my life, however accurate, stung. "That's my life. I've built it myself. And it could be so much more." He leaned forward, his intensity magnetic. "Stay in Milan. Work remotely for your publisher if you wish, or find better opportunities here. I can open doors for you that you don't even know exist." "In exchange for what?" I asked, my voice barely audible. His eyes darkened. "Your company, your honesty, your trust. Nothing else?" "I never take what isn't freely given," he said, something dangerous flashing in his eyes. "Remember that." The dessert arrived, a delicate confection of chocolate and berries that I barely tasted. My mind raced with implications and possibilities, with fear and a traitorous excitement I couldn't quite suppress. "I need time to think," I said finally. "This is all happening too quickly." Matteo nodded, as if my response was exactly what he'd expected. "Of course. Vittorio will take you back to the hotel whenever you're ready." The drive back to the Gran Milano passed in silence. Matteo accompanied me, his presence filling the car with unspoken tension. When we arrived, he escorted me through the lobby to the elevator, his hand resting lightly at the small of my back, a touch both protective and possessive. At the elevator, he took my hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture that belonged to another century. "Rest well, Elena. Tomorrow Vittorio will take you wherever you wish to go in Milan. The city has much to offer beyond business meetings." "And if I wish to go to the airport?" I challenged. His lips curved slightly. "Then he will take you there, and I will not interfere." The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside, turning to face him. "Why me, Matteo? There must be countless beautiful, sophisticated women in your world. Why fixate on a random American who drooled on your suit?" He held the elevator door open, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. "In my world, Elena, nothing is given without calculation. Nothing offered without expectation of return. You slept against me without wanting anything. The purest form of trust, even if unconscious." His eyes held mine. "It has been a very long time since anyone has trusted me without fear or agenda." The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. Before I could respond, he released the door. "Buonanotte, Elena. Choose what you want, not what you think you should want." As the elevator ascended, I leaned against the wall, my knees suddenly weak. The man was dangerous, not just because of his apparent criminal connections, but because something in me responded to his intensity, his absolute certainty. In my suite, I kicked off the expensive heels and stood at the window, gazing down at the Milan nightscape. My phone chimed with a text from the now familiar number. "The choice is yours. But know this. I protect what's mine, and from the moment you fell asleep against me, something in me recognized you as mine to protect." I clutched the phone, torn between outrage at his presumption and a shameful thrill at being claimed so completely by someone so powerful. Whatever I decided in the morning, I knew with absolute certainty that Matteo Ricci had already changed the course of my life irrevocably. The question was whether I would embrace that change or flee from it, and whether either choice was truly still within my power to make. Morning sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, warming my face and pulling me from a dreamless sleep. For a moment, I lay disoriented in the massive hotel bed, the previous day's events feeling more like fantasy than reality, but the black silk dress draped over a nearby chair confirmed everything. Matteo Ricci, the mafia connections, the unsettling dinner conversation. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from my boss congratulated me on securing exclusive rights with 3 Italian publishers, mentioning the extended networking opportunity and asking for a full report when I returned. No questions about my change of hotels or flight schedule. Matteo's influence had smoothed every potential obstacle. Another message waited beneath it. From him, of course. "Vittorio awaits your instructions for the day. Enjoy Milan." I have business to attend to, but we'll see you this evening. The red box on your dresser contains a phone. Use it to contact me directly. I spotted the sleek red box immediately, opened it to find the latest iPhone, not my usual mid-range model, but the premium version with a sleek black case. I turned it over in my hands, feeling both violated and cared for in a way that left me conflicted. Instead of using either phone, I ordered room service, a luxury I'd never allowed myself on work trips. As I sipped cappuccino on the balcony overlooking the city, I weighed my options with a clarity that had eluded me the night before. Option 1. Leave immediately. Use the return ticket Matteo claimed to have changed. Deal with the professional consequences later. Return to my normal life and forget this bizarre interlude. Option 2. Stay the extra days but maintain boundaries. Explore Milan, take advantage of the luxury accommodations, maybe even use Vittorio as a driver, but make it clear to Matteo that I wasn't his in any sense. Option 3. Surrender to curiosity, see where this strange attraction led. Allow Matteo to continue his possessive attention, and enjoy the doors it opened. Each choice carried risks. The first might offend a man with dangerous connections. The second would keep me in his orbit, tempting me toward the third. And the third could change everything in ways I couldn't predict. I showered, selected a simple day dress from the provided wardrobe, and made my decision. I would stay in Milan through the weekend but set clear boundaries. I would satisfy my curiosity about Matteo Ricci while keeping my independence. Downstairs, Vittorio waited in the lobby, his posture military straight, his expression neutral as always. "Good morning, Miss Taylor," he greeted me. "What is your pleasure today?" "I'd like to see Milan," I replied. The real Milan, not just the tourist attractions. Something like approval flickered across his stoic features. "Very good. I know just the places." The day passed in a kaleidoscope of experiences I would never have found in any guidebook. Vittorio drove me to hidden courtyards concealed behind unassuming doors, tiny workshops where artisans created leather goods and jewelry by hand, and a small family-owned restaurant where the owner greeted him like a brother and served us dishes that didn't appear on any menu. "How long have you worked for Mr. Ricci?" I asked as we walked through a secluded garden behind a 16th-century church. 15 years, Vittorio replied, "since he helped my family when no one else would." "Helped how?" I ventured, suspecting I was crossing a line but unable to resist. Vittorio's expression remained impassive. "My sister was very ill. The treatments she needed were expensive. Mr. Ricci paid for everything, arranged for specialists from Switzerland." He paused. "She is alive today because of him." "That's very generous," I said carefully. "Mr. Ricci rewards loyalty absolutely and punishes betrayal the same way," Vittorio said, his tone matter-of-fact rather than threatening. "It is why those who work for him would die for him if necessary." The implication hung in the air between us. Matteo inspired not just fear, but fierce devotion, a more complex picture than the simple mafia boss I had imagined. "And now he's fixated on me," I murmured, more to myself than to Vittorio. "Mr. Ricci does not fixate," Vittorio corrected. "He recognizes value where others do not. It is a gift." Before I could pursue this further, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression changing subtly. "Change of plans, Miss Taylor. Mr. Ricci requests your presence." My stomach tightened. I thought he had business meetings all day. "The situation has changed. Please." He gestured toward the car, his tone making it clear this wasn't optional. We drove to an area of the city I hadn't yet seen. Less polished, more industrial. Vittorio's usual calm seemed slightly strained, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors as we navigated narrower streets. "Where are we going?" I asked, anxiety creeping into my voice. "A property Mr. Ricci owns," Vittorio replied vaguely. "It is secure." We pulled into a gated courtyard behind what appeared to be a warehouse. 2 men in suits stood guard, hands concealed beneath their jackets in a way that left little doubt they were armed. "Stay close to me," Vittorio instructed as he opened my door. "Do not speak unless Mr. Ricci addresses you directly." My heart pounded as we were escorted through a nondescript door and down a hallway to a freight elevator. The men exchanged rapid Italian too fast for my limited proficiency to follow, but I caught enough to understand something had gone wrong. The elevator opened to reveal a surprisingly elegant office space. Modern furniture contrasted with exposed brick walls, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the courtyard below, tinted for privacy. Matteo stood with his back to us, speaking quietly into a phone. Even from behind, I could sense the tension in his posture, the coiled energy of a predator preparing to strike. He turned as we entered, his eyes finding mine immediately. Blood stained the cuff of his otherwise immaculate white shirt. "Elena," he said, his voice controlled despite the circumstances. "This is unexpected. I apologize for interrupting your tour." "What happened?" I asked, unable to tear my gaze from the crimson stain. "A misunderstanding that required my personal attention," he replied smoothly. "It's resolved now." A man emerged from an adjacent room. Older, with silver hair and a face lined by experience rather than age. He carried a small medical kit. "Mr. Ricci, we should clean that cut," he said in accented English. "Later, dottore." Matteo dismissed him. "Ensure our other guest is comfortable first." The doctor nodded and retreated, closing the door behind him. "You're hurt," I observed, stepping closer despite Vittorio's warning hand on my arm. "A scratch," Matteo said dismissively. "Nothing serious. You're bleeding." "It's not my blood." His dark eyes held mine, challenging me to react. The implication struck me like a physical blow. I swayed slightly, and instantly his hand was at my elbow, steadying me. "I wanted to shield you from this aspect of my business," he said quietly. "But circumstances intervened." "Your business," I repeated. "Violence is your business, sometimes necessary to protect what's mine." His grip on my elbow tightened slightly. "Someone made a miscalculation today. They won't make another." I should have been terrified. I should have pulled away, demanded to be taken back to the hotel, fled this man and his dangerous world. Instead, I found myself reaching for his bloodied cuff, my fingers hovering just above the stain. "Are you afraid of me now, Elena?" he asked, his voice low. "I should be," I whispered. "But you're not." It wasn't a question. "I'm afraid of what this means," I admitted. "That I'm standing here with you instead of running." Something softened in his expression. "You understand more than you realize," he turned to Vittorio. "Take Miss Taylor back to the Grand Milano. I'll join her for dinner at 8. "I want to go back to my room now," I said, suddenly needing space to process everything. Matteo nodded. "Of course. Vittorio will ensure you have everything you need." The drive back to the hotel passed in silence. My mind raced with implications and realizations I couldn't ignore. Matteo Ricci wasn't just connected to organized crime. He was a central figure in it. The blood on his cuff belonged to someone who had crossed him, someone who had suffered the consequences. And still, something in me responded to him. Something dark and primitive recognized the security offered by a man who would eliminate threats without hesitation. It was a disturbing realization about myself. One I wasn't prepared to face. Back in my suite, I paced restlessly, my carefully constructed boundaries crumbling. I should call the airline, book the first flight home, and put an ocean between myself and Matteo Ricci. Instead, I found myself opening the red box again, removing the phone he had given me. It contained only one contact, M. My finger hovered over it, trembling slightly. Before I could decide, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find a hotel staff member with a large white box. "Delivery for you, Miss Taylor," he said, placing it on the bed before departing. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, lay a dress that took my breath away, deep burgundy silk that would fall to my ankles, with a neckline that dipped just low enough to be daring without crossing into vulgar. Beside it rested a matching clutch and shoes, along with a small velvet jewelry case. The card simply read, "Tonight, we discuss terms." M. Terms. As if this were a negotiation, a business arrangement. Perhaps it was, in his world. Protection, luxury, and privilege in exchange for... what exactly? My company? My body? My complicity in whatever his business entailed? I sank onto the bed, the reality of my situation finally crystallizing. I was being courted, in an aggressive, overwhelming manner, by a man who eliminated problems with brutal efficiency, who commanded loyalty through both fear and genuine devotion, who saw something in me that I couldn't yet recognize in myself. The phone in my hand suddenly buzzed with a text. Your silence speaks volumes. If you wish to end this now, simply say so. Vittorio will take you to the airport immediately. If not, I'll see you at 8. The choice lay before me, clear and irrevocable. Leave now. Return to safety and normalcy, or step further into Matteo's world, knowing exactly what that world contained. I thought of my apartment back home, small but comfortable. My job, stable but uninspiring, the predictable rhythm of my days. Then I thought of Matteo's intensity, the way his presence electrified a room, the dangerous possibility he represented. My fingers moved across the screen before I could reconsider. I'll see you at 8. His response came instantly. Wise choice, cara mia. We have much to discuss. At precisely 7:50, I stood before the mirror in the burgundy dress, hair swept up to expose my neck, the diamond pendant from the previous night replaced with a ruby drop that matched the dress perfectly. The woman reflected back at me seemed like a stranger, confident, elegant, unafraid. But my hands trembled slightly as I reached for the clutch, and my heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. I was about to negotiate terms with a man who had blood on his cuffs just hours ago, and God help me, I was excited about it. The elevator doors opened to reveal Matteo waiting in the lobby, impeccably dressed in a black suit that made his olive skin glow in the subtle lighting. His eyes darkened as they swept over me, a possessive appreciation that sent heat spiraling through my body. You take my breath away, he said simply, offering his arm. I placed my hand on his sleeve, feeling the solid warmth beneath expensive fabric. Where are we going tonight? My home, he replied. Not the villa from last night, my actual residence. Few people are ever invited there. The significance of this wasn't lost on me. Matteo was offering a glimpse behind his carefully constructed facade, a privilege apparently rarely granted. The drive took us away from the city center, winding upward into the hills surrounding Milan. Lights from the city twinkled below as we ascended, creating the illusion of driving into the stars themselves. Vittorio remained silent as he navigated the increasingly narrow roads, finally turning onto a private drive hidden behind wrought iron gates that opened silently at our approach. The house that appeared before us wasn't the ostentatious mansion I had half expected. Instead, it was an elegant stone structure that seemed to grow organically from the hillside, its clean lines and large windows blending harmoniously with the surrounding landscape. Warm light spilled from within, creating an unexpectedly inviting atmosphere. It's beautiful, I said honestly, as Vittorio opened my door. It's secure, Matteo replied, though I caught the flicker of pleasure at my approval. Privacy is paramount in my position. Inside, the house revealed itself as a masterpiece of understated luxury. No gilded surfaces or crystal chandeliers here. Instead, rich woods, natural stone, and floor-to-ceiling windows that would frame spectacular views by daylight. The art adorning the walls wasn't meant to impress with famous names, but rather selected for genuine appreciation. Landscapes, abstract pieces, and what appeared to be local artists' work. You have excellent taste, I observed, running my fingers along a smooth wooden banister. I know what I value, Matteo responded, his eyes never leaving mine. He led me to a terrace overlooking the twinkling panorama of Milan below. A table had been set for dinner, candles casting a warm glow over fine china and crystal. Unlike the formal setup of the previous evening, this felt more intimate, almost domestic. A woman appeared, older, with a kind face that contrasted with the stone-faced security personnel I'd encountered in Matteo's world. Rosa has prepared dinner, Matteo explained. She's been with me since I was a boy. Rosa smiled at me with genuine warmth. It's good to see the master finally bringing someone home, she said in heavily accented English. Especially someone so beautiful, Rosa, Matteo chided gently, but I caught the affection in his tone. I'll bring the first course, she replied, unintimidated. You two talk. When she had gone, Matteo pulled out my chair. Rosa has a tendency to say exactly what she thinks, an unusual quality among those in my employ. I like her, I said, accepting the wine he poured. She's the first person in your world who seems normal. My world, he repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. You make it sound like another planet. Isn't it? I challenged. Armed guards, blood-stained cuffs, mysterious warehouses with secret offices. Mateo's expression grew serious. You saw things today I never intended you to see. But I did see them, I pointed out. I can't unsee them. I can't pretend not to know what you are. And what am I, Elena? He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes intent on mine. I took a steadying breath. A criminal. Someone who uses violence when necessary. Someone with enough power to rearrange my entire trip, change hotel reservations, and influence business meetings with a single phone call. He nodded, accepting my assessment without offense. All true. Does it frighten you? What frightens me is that it doesn't frighten me enough, I admitted. I should have run the moment I realized who you were. Instead, I'm sitting here, wearing a dress you bought me, drinking your wine, considering whatever this is you're offering. Rosa returned with our first course, a delicate pasta dish that smelled divine. We ate in silence for several moments, the only sound the distant chirping of crickets and the clink of silverware against fine china. You mentioned terms, I finally said, setting down my fork. In your message. What exactly are you proposing, Mateo? He dabbed his mouth with a napkin, considering his words carefully. I want you in my life, Elena, not as a casual acquaintance or temporary diversion. As what, then? As mine, he said simply. Under my protection, sharing my life, eventually as my wife. I nearly choked on my wine. Your wife? We've known each other for 2 days. Some things don't require time, he replied with absolute conviction. I knew the moment you trusted me enough to sleep against me. You carry no pretense, no agenda. It's refreshing in my world. You can't possibly expect me to agree to that, I protested, though something deep inside me thrilled at his directness. Not immediately, no. I'm proposing a period of transition. 3 months. You'll move to Milan, work remotely for your publisher, or, if you prefer, accept a position I can arrange with an Italian publishing house. You'll live here with me, and experience what life at my side would entail. And at the end of 3 months, you decide, he said. Stay permanently, or return to your former life with no obligations, financially secure enough to pursue whatever path you choose. I stared at him, searching for signs of deception or manipulation. I found none, only that same unwavering certainty that had characterized his every interaction with me. Why me? I asked, the question that had haunted me since that first text message. You could have anyone. Why fixate on an ordinary translator who accidentally fell asleep on you? Mateo's expression softened slightly. In my position, Elena, trust is more valuable than gold. Loyalty more precious than diamonds. The moment you slept against me, completely vulnerable, something inside me recognized what I've been searching for. Someone genuine in a world of masks and agendas. That's not a rational basis for such a life-altering proposition, I pointed out. I've built an empire on instinct, he countered. It hasn't failed me yet. Rosa appeared with the main course, a perfectly roasted fish with vegetables harvested from the property's own gardens, she proudly informed us. As we ate, I considered Mateo's outlandish proposal from every angle. What about your business? I asked carefully. I saw blood on your cuff today. I can't be part of that. My business has many facets, he replied. Not all involve violence, but I won't lie to you. Sometimes force is necessary. You would never be involved in those aspects, but you would benefit from the protection and privilege my position provides. You're asking me to accept blood money, I said bluntly. I'm asking you to accept the complexity of power, he corrected. The world isn't divided neatly into good and evil, Elena. Those who pretend otherwise are either naive or hypocrites, and where do you fall on that spectrum? His eyes held mine steadily. I protect what's mine. I keep my word. I reward loyalty absolutely. Beyond that, I make no claims to virtue. His honesty was disarming. No justifications, no pretense of being misunderstood or forced into his position. Just the simple acknowledgement of who and what he was. I have a life back home, I said weakly. A job, an apartment. A life that can be packed into 2 suitcases. He interrupted gently. A job that undervalues your talents. An apartment you described to me as functional but depressing while you were sleeping against my shoulder. I blushed. I talk in my sleep? Extensively, he confirmed, the hint of a smile playing at his lips. It was enlightening. Embarrassment warred with curiosity. What else did I say? That you were tired of translating other people's stories instead of living your own, he said quietly. That you were afraid of waking up one day having played it safe your entire life. The words struck something deep inside me. A truth I rarely acknowledged even to myself. The desert arrived. A delicate tiramisu that I barely tasted as I wrestled with the decision before me. 3 months, I repeated. And if I choose to leave after that time? You walk away with a generous severance that will allow you to pursue whatever life you desire, he stated. No threats, no consequences, no reprisals. And if I say no now, Vittorio drives you to the airport tomorrow, Matteo said simply. You return to your life as if none of this happened, though I think we both know you would always wonder what might have been. He was right about that much. Whatever happened, I would never forget these days in Milan. Never forget Matteo Ricci and his impossible proposal. I need to think, I said, setting down my dessert spoon. Of course. He rose, offering his hand. Let me show you the rest of the house while you consider. The tour revealed a home that was both fortress and sanctuary. Security systems hidden behind elegant design, safe rooms disguised as ordinary closets, escape routes concealed within architectural features. Matteo explained each feature matter-of-factly, neither apologizing for the necessity nor dramatizing the danger. This would be your study, he said, opening double doors to reveal a book-lined room with a desk positioned to capture morning light. I noticed you prefer to work with natural light. The thoughtfulness of this detail, observing a preference I hadn't even mentioned, caught me off guard. Each room we entered revealed similar touches. A reading nook with the same style of chair I had described in my apartment. A bathroom stocked with the brand of lavender bath salts I had mentioned loving. You've been planning this since the plane, I realized aloud. I've been preparing for the possibility, he corrected. The final decision remains yours. We ended the tour on a balcony overlooking both the city lights below and the stars above. The night air carried the scent of jasmine from the gardens below, and in the distance, I could hear the faint sounds of Milan's nightlife. This could be your life, Matteo said quietly, coming to stand beside me at the railing. Not without complications, I admit, but never boring, never constrained, never ordinary. I turned to face him, studying the strong lines of his profile, the intensity that seemed to radiate from him even in stillness. If I say yes, I began carefully. I have conditions of my own, interest sparked in his eyes. Name them. Complete honesty, I said firmly. I won't live in ignorance or denial about what your business entails. I don't want details of violence, but I won't be kept in the dark about the general nature of what you do, he nodded slowly. Acceptable. What else? My work continues, I insisted. I need my own identity, my own purpose. I won't be just Matteo Ricci's woman. I would expect nothing less, he agreed. Your independence is part of what attracts me. Anything else? I took a deep breath. If I stay beyond the 3 months, if we were to eventually marry, I want a normal family life. Children who aren't involved in your business, a home where they're safe. Something vulnerable flashed across his face, so briefly I almost missed it. Family is sacred, he said quietly. Children should be protected from the harsher realities of life for as long as possible. On this, we are in complete agreement. I nodded, surprised by how much his answer satisfied something deep within me. Then, yes. 3 months. Matteo's expression remained controlled, but I saw the flash of triumph in his eyes. He closed the distance between us in 2 steps, one hand coming up to cradle my face with unexpected tenderness. You won't regret this, he said, his voice husky with emotion I hadn't expected from him. I hope not, I whispered. His lips met mine in a kiss that started gently but quickly deepened, with an intensity that left me breathless. His arms encircled me, pulling me against the solid wall of his chest as if he feared I might vanish if he didn't hold on tight enough. When we finally broke apart, I saw something I hadn't witnessed before. A genuine smile that transformed his severe features, reaching his eyes and revealing a dimple in his right cheek. "Welcome home, Elena," he murmured against my hair as we stood there under the Italian stars. I knew my life had irrevocably changed course. 3 months would show whether this strange, intense connection that had begun with an accidental moment of vulnerability on a red-eye flight would become my new reality or remain an extraordinary interlude. But looking into Matteo's eyes, seeing the fierce protectiveness and unexpected tenderness there, I suspected we both already knew how this story would end.